What's up folks, Lex here, and today we're going to deep dive into some Madden NFL 19 franchise news, and I gotta say I'm pretty pleased of what I've read, so stick with me through the whole video and I'll explain myself. But real quick, just kind of setting up this whole video, EA just had their E3 press conference, and I'm a huge fan of all types of games, so I'm excited for E3 as a whole, and I can't wait till tomorrow in Bethesda's conference to hear about Fallout 76, because Fallout is my favorite game series of all time. But this is a sports channel, sports gaming channel, so let's just focus on Madden real quick. Really just awkward presentation that they had on stage, and they showed us a trailer that looked kind of CG, kind of gameplay, and I didn't know whether to make heads or tails out of it, so I decided I was just going to wait until friends at EA Play had played the game, and I was going to take what they said about it and kind of gauge my excitement level based on that. But as you guys know, I am a franchise guy. That's the most important thing in the game to me. So I was surprised when GameInformer.com dropped an article talking all about franchise mode and the new improvements to it. And I gotta say, as I was first reading the article, I was pissed. I was upset. But as I went on, I started to get more happy and more excited, because it really does feel like they're going in a good direction now. Stick with me till the end, because most of the good stuff is at the end, but we'll talk about it all here, and this is going to be a long video, but people who have subscribed to me are probably used to that, so just hang tight. We're going to read through the whole thing. I'm going to give my reactions to it. So the article starts off by saying, putting together a good NFL roster, to say nothing of one that can win a Super Bowl, is very hard. Head coaches and GMs have to have a philosophy in place to know which players, whether that's big name veterans or late round draft picks, can fill their expected roles. Madden NFL 19's franchise mode is trying to replicate the way NFL teams put together their roster and how it affects the players in a new scheme, player archetypes, and progression system for connected franchise mode. So the first thing I want to say real quick is that it has not been difficult to build a Super Bowl winning team in Madden. The way I see it, it's been actually pretty easy to do. It's pretty easy to work the system. The AI doesn't make great trades, etc. So, you know, will it be harder? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. Each team has an offensive and defensive scheme, which can be changed, and players fit into these schemes via player archetypes. Like previous years, as you play, you earn XP for your on-the-field actions. These get you skill points, which can be applied to the specific player archetypes that apply to that player, like being a strong-arm QB. Doing this raises the overall in that archetype a full point and raises random ratings assigned to the archetype. So the way that this reads is that you will have a certain archetype for your position. So a QB, if you have a strong arm QB, you're going to earn XP for the stuff that he does. The XP goes towards earning a skill point, and then a skill point will basically raise random attributes of that quarterback. And I'll get more into this in a bit, because people might be saying, random? Like, why can't I just pick? I'm going to tell you why that's a good thing here in a bit. Let's keep reading though. Players get XP bonuses for playing in the schemes that are appropriate to their player archetype, but playing in the wrong scheme does not make your player worse. It just doesn't make them progress as fast. So as you assemble your team for the season and envision what it's going to look like years down the road, you can maximize the talents of role players that fit into your scheme, sign free agents that have appropriate skills and not just the highest overall, and have a better idea who to scout and target for the draft. You can also reverse engineer your team, like changing your scheme and the players on your team to build around a QB that unexpectedly fell to you in the draft, for example. Now, I love this. I absolutely love this. This is what I talked about in a previous video I did. It's all about really kind of disregarding the overall rating and focusing more on player roles. This is so important. We have to get away from just building our team by grabbing the highest overall players. There's still going to be that overall there, but now that it's based on archetypes and based on your scheme, and it's going to adjust to that, and the fact that you can play a guy who might not have high ratings, you can play him in your scheme, and if he's a scheme fit, he's going to progress fast. That is brilliant. You could have, let's just say you're a team that runs the zone run offense, okay? You have a running back that is maybe like a 73 overall, and you play him the whole season, and he has a great season. He's a scheme fit. Not only is he going to progress from the XP that he gets and putting those into skill points, improving random ratings and whatnot, but also because he is a scheme fit, he's going to progress faster. So that means that 73 overall is not just going to become a 74 or 75 overall. He has the potential to blow up and actually become, and I don't have any evidence to say this, but like an 80 or above. And it really feels like there can be breakout players from what I'm reading in this, which is awesome. Just the fact that we can now, go after a player that in Madden, we've all had that experience where we've gotten this 65 overall player, right? And he has low ratings, but he plays great on the field. Now that person can basically double down if he's the right scheme fit and become a valuable player in the NFL because of that. Before, you could have a 65 overall guy and he's tearing it up and he's getting all these big stats and whatnot, and he only gets, one overall higher, and he's a 66, and he goes into free agency, nobody cares about him because he's a 66 overall, right? Even though he has this monster season where he was like the MVP or whatever. Hopefully this kind of fixes it, or at least starts to correct that. But let's keep going here. Gamers might have some interesting choices to make. Do you start a good vet around who doesn't fit the scheme, or do you give his spot to the rookie who does? The former may have better stats, but the latter will benefit from being a scheme fit and progress faster. Here's how it works, as well as details on some other changes for franchise mode. Schemes. EA created 8 offensive schemes and 6 defensive ones. Offense: spread, West Coast zone run, West Coast power run, vertical zone run, vertical power run, multiple power run, multiple zone run, run and shoot. Defense: base 4-3, multiple 4-3, base 3-4, multiple 3-4, Tampa 2, and 46. If you want to change your team's playbook, you can see what schemes go with that playbook. Visual indicators allow you to see a player's scheme fit, including while you're scouting for the draft. So let's go over this first screen that we have here. It's a picture of Jason Garrett. He's got his offensive scheme, he's got his defensive scheme, his offensive playbook, and his defensive playbook. And then you can see the positions and the player type that this scheme basically fits. And you see who on your roster, like how many players on your roster fit the scheme. And then you have a scheme fit percentage rating there at the top right. So this is all very helpful, good data that's being relayed back to the user and all that. And we will talk about that background in just a moment here, because one of my big sticking points is the menu system in the Madden game. So let's keep going here. Archetypes. Player archetypes fit within schemes, and there are up to 4 archetypes for each positional group. The QB archetypes, for example, are Scrambler, Strong Arm, West Coast, and Field General. If you are running a vertical scheme, the archetype you'd be looking for is Strong Arm. Each of the archetypes has its own internal formula that determines the attribute mix within that archetype. Players whose archetype fits the team's scheme get XP bonuses, so they will gain new skill points faster, but there are no penalties for those who don't, and archetypes do not change a player's existing ratings. Great overall players like Antonio Brown excel in multiple archetypes. So that is an awesome detail there, in case you were worried, which I know some of you were. You can apply skill points to any archetype, so if a player doesn't fit the scheme off the bat, you can level the appropriate archetype to eventually make them fit the scheme. So if you draft a player and you really love him for his speed or his height or whatever it may be, you can work towards making that player fit into your scheme eventually. I don't know how long that's going to take, and obviously there's a risk reward system in that place. So it's showing that this system is very flexible. It's not forcing you to only pick scheme guys to succeed. You can really fall in love with a player in free agency or the draft and adapt them to become the player you want them to be to fit on your team. Now, contracts and all that kind of stuff will obviously hinder that process, but you know, it's worth a shot. It'll be an interesting experiment for sure. Okay, so now we're going to look at the second picture here. It's a picture of Odell Beckham Jr. We can see him in the locker room with his player model and all of that, and we'll get to that. That has a significance. We'll get to that a little bit later, but we can see a very similar player card, but still there are some differences. We see view and depth chart, his goals as well. I definitely want to learn more about that. Stats and contracts, set as captain. So it looks like you can now set a captain for your team. And again, it does explain this in a little bit, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. It's something I'm very excited for. It's a small thing, but it's one of those detail things that I really wanted to see back in there from all those years ago. I think Madden 12 was the last time they did it correctly, maybe. And even then, I remember it was broken to some degree. Add to the trade block, trade away. You get your player profile, all their height, weight, age, experience, college, their development trait, which has changed. We'll talk about that in a bit. Player archetypes. So you can see a deep threat, he's a 95 overall. Possession, he's a 93 overall. Red zone, 93. Slot, 93. So as you can see, this is showing Odell Beckham Jr. is an elite type of player. He is pretty much good in any scheme. Any scheme, he's going to be no less than a 93 right here. But he is best fit into the deep threat where he's a 95 overall. And let me just say, I love that. I just absolutely love what I'm reading here. And the more I read about it, the more I'm falling in love with it. It's really going to make building your team a lot more fun because you have to take all this into account. So let's talk about player progression. Players' archetypes fitting into their team scheme doesn't modify players' rating from game to game. Scheme fit players progress faster than those who don't. So it's not going to change the rating schemes game to game. It's basically all about earning the XP faster because they're the scheme fit to earn those skill points, and then those skill points will upgrade certain attributes, or certain random attributes. I want to drive that home. When you apply a skill point to an archetype, you get a random bump in the archetype's appropriate ratings. This is based on weighted randomization and can change the next time you apply a skill point or do it with a different player. You cannot see what the outcome will be before you apply your skill point. So I like the fact that they said weighted random. That means that it will have, so it won't be completely random, like his kick rating went up. It will be weighted so that more, so certain attributes will have a higher chance basically of upgrading. So that is something that's also important to remember. This isn't completely random. Why is it random? And why can't players grow the attributes the way they want? Senior designer John White says that players in online leagues would save up all their points and then dump them into an attribute like speed all at once. This, however, wouldn't change the player's overall rating, creating an imbalance that threw off the game's free agent or resigning logic. We would never rate a guy like people were able to build these guys, he says. I love this. Now, you may hate it because you can't put it into certain spots, and MLB The Show took some flack for doing this and wrote to the show. And let me say this. This was actually hinted at by some of the game changers early on in the year. And I'm realizing that now. And I love this system. I love that people can't put wherever they want, that it is going to be random. I don't play in online leagues, so it doesn't really matter to me, I guess. I never did that in the first place. I would just automatically let the computer do whatever it wanted to XP. But I love that people won't be able to get away with this, and I'm sure there are commissioners that feel the same way. It just creates an imbalance and an unrealistic way to play this game to build teams. So I am all for this. Traditional player traits like clutch are not buyable, but are an innate part of the player from the start. So you can't buy clutch ratings and all those, more, I don't know what you would call them exactly, but those rating or those attributes that are you either have it or you don't type of thing, the intangibles, as it were. So that is really cool. I really love that as well. The development trait is changed. There is no more slow development. It's normal, quick, star, and superstar. Superstar encompasses only 30 to 40 players in the league. This trait can evolve. So I don't know if I like that. I kind of liked having the slow development guys. Just that's how some guys are. Some guys never get it, and that's cool. But they're not having it here. It is good to see 30 to 40 players in the league will have the superstar trait. That seems like a pretty good range of guys. I'd even say maybe that's even on the high side, but it seems okay to me. Weekly game planning and focus training stay the same. I don't care for game planning and focus training at all. I don't use it. It's a big waste to me, but that will go unchanged for those that do like to use it. Player regression has been overhauled and sounds like the progression system in reverse, in that players won't automatically lose their speed, for example. It's also based on weighted randomization. So another thing that I like that too. I like that it's random. A big deal is people hated that players lost speed because it was unrealistic. Some guys are 40 years old and they're almost just as fast as they were when they were 30. So it didn't really make a lot of sense to do that, but speed is such a strong attribute in Madden that they probably felt like they had to do that. I don't know. We'll see. So we get another screenshot here, and it's very similar to the one we saw earlier with Odell Beckham Jr., but this one's of Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. Let's look at his archetypes real quick. Scrambler 82, Strong Arm 81, West Coast 81, Field General 80. Again, not a huge variance right there. I hope that there are players with a lot wider of a variance, because that if it's just all the same right here, that's really not going to show the impact of these guys. I would like to see maybe a more fringe quarterback, or possibly an edge rusher, and just see how the archetypes differ, because with Beckham and Prescott, they pretty much are all the same. Here he's got a quick development trait, 82 overall. You see the captain C up above by the 82 overall, and he's got the captain's patch on his jersey, which is really cool. So let's get down to this, and this is probably my favorite part of this whole article: custom draft classes, new ratings, draft day, and more. Players can choose to use a custom draft class on week 3 of their franchise. This can be imported, created, or loaded. If you create one, you'll start with one of the pre-made ones from EA Tiburon that are normally in the game, and then can edit as little or as much as you like. You can create your own hidden draft gems and stash them in the lower rounds. If you can imagine it, you can draft it, says producer Ben Hommler. Number one, before I talk about this whole draft thing, I really love Ben Hommler. He was an NCAA football guy, and I've just always really liked his take and his attitude towards building these games. Definitely one of my favorite devs. Madden 19 introduces new ratings for some positions. Quarterback, for example, throw under pressure, break sack, and break tackle. Very cool, much needed. Wide receiver, short, medium, and deep route running. Very cool. And offensive lineman, run block power/finesse, pass block power/finesse, and lead block. So a couple different new ratings for them as well. If you're a coach or owner in franchise mode, you'll see them in their office complete with idle animations. If you're a player, they'll be in the locker room. I love this. More immersion. This is immersion. This is good. Keep doing this. Good immersion. I'm so happy for this. I know some people will not care about this at all, but I just love to be immersed, and this is a step forward in that. I still have some concerns, but I'll get to those at the end. Draft day has been reworked to feature a new draft location, complete with a stage, with a crowd, and a cityscape in the background. When you draft a player, you'll see that model come out on stage and even strike a pose. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is something I have been wanting for so long, and I can't believe they finally did it. The draft is so important, and it needs to be important in Madden. It needs to have this big thing around it. It needs to have these players coming out. It needs to feel special. These are the players that could potentially be your franchise for the next 10 years, and finally we get importance on that, and I love it. Thank you. You can take 5 or 6 snapshots from within games, which will then be threaded through the mode's other menus, news, and loading screens. Awesome. More immersion. Very cool. The team depth chart, like in Ultimate Team, contains special positions: slot receiver, slot corner, rush defensive end, rush defensive tackle, power back, and sub linebacker. All awesome to get those different depth chart positions on there. For so long, we've had the same old positions for so long, and it's good to finally see the game adapting to what the real NFL is like. And also what this does is brings those role players into your team so that the guys who are 74 overall don't seem so useless. They finally can have a spot on your team and contribute to the team. Awesome stuff. You can choose your team captains, and you'll see the appropriate patches with their stars. Some teams don't have captain patches or only have them in the playoffs. Very cool immersion thing again, just to see that once you set a captain, you'll see the patch on the field and you'll know that's the captain, that's the guy. And then finally, we're going to look at our last screenshot here. So what we can see from this screenshot, number one, you have the team schedule at the top of the menu, which is interesting. At least kind of gives you a quick look at what your upcoming few weeks are going to be like. All the way to the right, we can see the terrible profile system is still in play, which makes me sad. I really hope they found a way to just select everybody all at once, and we don't have to go through. If you want to set up a 32 team offline franchise, we don't have to go through each one where it takes 30 minutes just to do it. I really hope that they fix that. Again, that's kind of a smaller issue because I know a lot of people don't do that, but it's an issue I had nonetheless. You have a things to do, team, manage, league, and options there at the top that you can basically click through with LB and RB. And then you have your depth chart there. Pretty much the same as far as I can see. You can change between offense, defense, special teams, specialist, practice. So the specialist is new. It's got a little new tag by it. So those are the positions that we probably just talked about. All those, you have your scheme and how much of your team fits your scheme. And then you have my team free agents, my coach, trade center there on the right. Also down at the bottom, if you look, you can see that it actually has a news feed ticker on the bottom. It's not very nice to look at. It's very minimalist. I mean, if that's your thing, that's your thing, cool, but it's just not very exciting to look at. What I really want to see is that first page, but we don't get to see it, so I really want to see if they've actually put news on that first page. And in the background there, you can see the Dallas Cowboys, basically the coach's office or whatever of Jason Garrett. So what am I not liking about this? Which, by the way, I liked almost everything in there. You know, in fact, the only thing that doesn't really matter to me is the draft classes, because I don't think I'll be doing that. I like the random draft classes that the game gives me, but I know a lot of people have been wanting draft classes so they can make the real life ones, and that's cool for them. Awesome. I'm not mad about it at all. I'm happy for them. It's just something that I don't think personally I'll use, but maybe I'll mess around with it. One of the things, the profile system, I'm not happy about that's returning. I'm not happy that XP is still in the game and such a big focus. I don't like XP, but they found a way that I can live with it, because putting it into the skill point, which then gives you random attribute boosts instead of just putting it into specific ones, makes me feel at ease a lot more. So at least they did something smart with the XP system, and it's something that I am actually looking forward to checking out. The other thing is, I don't really see like player morale and stuff like that, which is something I really want in the game. I've been playing a lot of MLB The Show's franchise mode lately, and man, the morale system really makes players dynamic, and it makes them feel like they have a personality, they have goals and desires and wants, and they have an attitude change based off what those factors are. Like if somebody wants to play close to home and he's not, that can really affect his ratings. If somebody is playing well above what they're expected to be playing as, you know, if someone's leading the league in batting average and they're only supposed to be like a mid-tier guy, that can really improve their overall. And it's a temporary thing, so there's still kind of a base, right? There's still kind of a base where if you trade him and he starts playing terribly, he'll go back down. I really want to see that in Madden. Really want to see players have personality. So there's a lot of good stuff in this article. I'm actually excited for Madden 19. There was also the announcement that Madden 19 is coming to PC. So that'll be interesting. I don't think a lot of people will play it on PC because either they don't have a PC, they don't have a PC that can run it, or they just prefer to play on console. But I'm glad that the option is going to be there to play on PC. I might play it on PC and my Xbox and just have two different things going. I don't know. I'm really excited about what I've seen, and I wasn't expecting to be. I had a lot of doubts. You saw in my other video, had a lot of doubts about Madden 19's franchise mode, but now I'm actually excited for it and looking forward to hearing more. And hopefully they put a lot more stuff in and not just this. Hopefully this wasn't the whole thing. And I expect there will be a little bit more, at least a little bit, you know, cosmetic. I want to see the draft stuff, and yeah, I'm just really excited for it. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Does this stuff not do anything for you? How do you like the XP skill point system, the player archetypes, the draft stuff, you know, the captain stuff, the new menus, all of that? Let me know in the comments what you think. Are you more excited for Madden 19 now? Are you less excited for Madden 19? Where do you stand now? I don't know if I'll be making any more videos on Madden 19 until we get more franchise news, but if I don't, check out my other vids and subscribe to the channel for more sports gaming news. Whew, that was a long video. Thank you for sticking through it with me, and I will catch you guys next time. This is Lex, signing off. Okay, a little bit of a bonus here for you. This actually popped up in the Operation Sports Forum posted by JP Davis, and I wanted to talk about it real quick because it kind of confirms my fears that they didn't do much in the way, at least on the first page that you see, of bringing news immersion, which is, as you guys know, as I've harped on before, is one of my biggest problems with Madden's franchise mode right now, is that you don't really feel connected to your league. You feel really isolated, and they don't really present news in a way that's interesting or exciting and makes you want to actually like live in your world, you know. So we look at this, and it's very similar to what we've had before. Instead of the white or blue background, what you get now is your office. We talked about that earlier, so it looks like that's going to be throughout. You know, there might be some good looking news on the league page. I don't know for sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see as more menus come out. But this is disappointing because it should be the first screen right when you pop out of a game or right when you advance a week. You should be hit with that news. And maybe something does pop up. I don't know. Maybe this picture doesn't indicate that. Could be. I doubt it, but it could be. So I want to say initially, from this information that I'm seeing, it looks like they didn't hit on that immersion, which is very disappointing. I'm still excited about all the other stuff that I talked about earlier, so I just wanted to hop on real quick and address that while I still am working on the video here. So anyway, guys, have a good day. Enjoy the rest of E3, and I'll hop back on if there's any important news that breaks towards Madden's franchise mode or anything like that. Anyway, this is Lex, signing off again.